This does not happen. Mom. We are soon. The voice of an 8-year-old son seemed sad and tired. Dima pressed his forehead against the cool, rattling glass of an old bus, looking at the endless green wall of the forest flashing outside the window. Already almost arrived, she answered softly, stroking her son in bright, disheveled hair. Do you see the river in front? It remains only through it to cross the shore, and we are in place. 3 hours of shaking the Pauhabi road were exhausted by order. Katya felt her legs buzzed, and a headache pounded in the temples with a persistent hammer. But it was physical fatigue, almost welcome, because it drowned out another, much deeper, sincere. The bus, snorting for the last time, stopped at a small pier, knocked out of old boards. Ahead of them was waiting for a crossing to that shore. On a ferry. The air here was different, thick, drunk, smelling of river water, tina and a pine bark heated in the sun. He burst into the lungs, displacing the musty city and the ghost of the dear spirits of the mistress of Christina, who seemed to be pursued by Katya everywhere. A fermenter, an elderly man, with eyebrows and a face like a baked apple with his eyebrows and a face, silently nodded to them. Accepting a fee, Raparel creaked, and now they got down over the plank, slowly sailed from the shore. Dima enthusiastically looked at circles diverging through the water, and Katya, at the retreating road. There, behind the forest and 3 hours of path. Their former life remained. The life that she built on the brick and which collapsed in one day, baking her all her dreams under her. Where are you going? Albert's mocking laughter rang in his ears. In the wilderness. To the village? To the late uncle, with a child in his arms? Yes. You are there with longing? Look at yourself. You are urban to the brain of bones. A week, a maximum of 2, and crawl back. And maybe I will forgive you. But Katya knew that she would not crawl. Never. The memories of her husband's words thrown in the back, when she, with a heavy suitcase, frightened by Dima, left their gorgeous apartment, gave her strength. Katyusha, think it over. The girlfriend's voice was trembling in the telephone tube. Well, changed. A goat, of course, but not rubbish from the shoulder. You have a son, an apartment, an established life, and a divorce is hell. You can't even imagine yourself. Let me come. Let's talk. Come up with something. No, Alina, she whispered into the phone, hastily laying things in Diamond's bag. There is nothing to think here. Understand, I will not live with a traitor in the same house, breathe in one air. I can't. His eyes, and not to remember this. Well, where are you going? I will make a light wilderness. What will you do there? I'll start all over again. But it will be seen there. And here it is on the other side, as if really in another life. When the ferry buried himself in the opposite shore, Katya saw a lone figure on the pier, a tall, broad-shouldered man of about 60 with a weathered but kind face and attentive grey eyes. He stepped forward when Katya, panting, tried to steal their largest suitcase from the ferry. Ekaterina Danilovna. His voice was low and calm, like the noise of the forest. Yes, it's me, she was embarrassed. And you? Yaroslav Petrovich, chairman of the village. They called from the district, warned that you would come. Let's help. He easily picked up a heavy suitcase, as if he had been filled with fluff. Thank you very much. Come on, such trifles. Come on, I will spend you. The house of Nikita Vasilievich is not far here, at the end of the street. They went along the trampled path leading deep into the village. Dima looked around with curiosity. The rickety fences, overgrown with dahlias of the police. Sleepy cats on the rubble and the distant barking of dogs. Everything was so unlike their noisy city court. It is a pity to Nikita, Yaroslav Petrovich broke the silence. It was a good man, right, heart. Who would have thought? with his health. I was informed that a heart attack, Katya said quietly. He is the most. As Nikita left. After all, we have no huntsman in the district. Direct trouble. Trouble, Katya did not understand. And then the poachers immediately raised their heads. Either the moose will be littered, then a wild boar, or even a network in Neres is put. Nikita did not give them a descent. He drove so that the heels sparkled. Each bush in the forest knew every path. And now these non-humans are the freemen. The damage of the living creatures, you see, is huge. It happens from the area. The inspectors are sent once every 2 weeks. But that he alone will have time to control everything. You need to live here, breathe in the forest. Katya listened to him, and in her head, tired of tears and insults, a completely crazy, incredible thought was suddenly born. At heart, she herself was even frightened by her insolence, but she could not express her. She stopped and looked directly into the eye of the chairman, Yaroslav Petrovich. But what if I try? He blinked in surprise. Try what? Well, to work with a huntsman, Katya blurted out, and a blush flooded her cheeks. Yaroslav Petrovich froze for a moment, and then his thick eyebrows crawled up, forming deep wrinkles on his forehead. He looked around Katya from head to toe. A fragile figure, thin wrists, city clothes and a fashionable haircut. And nearby is a little boy. The picture did not fit with the image of a thunderstorm of poachers. Huntsman? Asked the head of the village with the doubt that she suggested building a bridge across the river alone. My dear. Do you even imagine what kind of work this is? This is not for you to walk in the park, in the forest wilderness. What can only happen? I understand it is difficult. But difficult, he grinned. Not the same word. Just imagine, for days to dangle in the forest, in the rain, in the snow, to organize the beast for the beast in the winter, to carry top dressing, check the sun. And also accounting for the number of deer news. But the most important thing is to do with two-legged predators, with drunk men, with guns. Yes, they forgive you for directness, and they will not listen. They will send it to hell, and this is at best. But someone should do it, stubbornly repeated Katerina, herself not understanding where this persistence came from. Believe me, I'm strong, really? Yaroslav Petrovich shook his head, but in his gaze there was no longer 100% confidence. Something in this fragile woman with burning eyes hooked him. Some kind of inner steel, which you can't immediately see. You are stubborn, you see, like your uncle, the head of the village side. He too. If something has become in the head, you will not be chosen. Okay, it is not for me to decide forestry, but I can transfer the application. Just keep in mind. The demand will be strict. I want to try, Katya said firmly. Well, look. Once again he looked at her with doubt. Nikita, by the way, has a riding horse. The name is Cole.in the forest. Riding a horse, the most. The lawyer car will pass everywhere, and the horse will find the path. And yet, the dog was listed for allowance, Bim. I fed him all this time, sorry for the stomach. He is spinning around the house somewhere. Good dog. Smart. Assistant to the first. At the word dog, Dima, who had been silently listening to the conversation of adults before, started up. The boy's eyes lit up. Dog? A real dog? Yes, baby, real. Will we take it to ourselves? Dad said that only dirt and wool from dogs. Katya swallowed a lump in his throat with pain. Yes, Albert has always been against it. Against the dog, against a summer trip to the sea, considering it all with an empty waste of money. And also against her desire to go to floristry courses. In general, all that brought Katya or son a simple ingenuous joy. Yaroslav Petrovich, noticing the reaction of the boy, smiled understandingly. Of course, take it. He is now yours. Hey, Bim, go here, buddy. Having said this, the chairman published a piercing whistle. At that moment, a large shepherd with clever brown eyes and one slightly hanging ear rose in the shadow of the crushed old apple tree. Where the shadow was visible in the shade. The dog approached them with dignity, wagging his tail, and poked a wet nose into the chairman's hand. Here, meet Bim. These are your new masters. Dima, forgetting about fatigue, stepped to the dog. Bim sniffed him carefully, and then delicately licked his outstretched palm. The boy laughed at a pure happy laugh that Katya has not heard for a very long time. Here are the ladles, said Yaroslav Petrovich in a warm voice, with these words. He handed a bunch of old darkened keys and several papers. These are houses, and these are documents for him. Come to me tomorrow morning to the board. I will call the district and call an employee from the Jaeger service. Let Evgeny Pavlovich at least conduct a briefing for you. Leads to the course of business, well, and there it will be seen, decide. Thank you for everything. The chairman nodded and, saying goodbye, walked back along the path. Katya inserted the largest key into the well. The castle did not succumb immediately. With a scraping. The door opened and let them into a cool twilight. The house smelled as she remembered from childhood, dried herbs, wood, and something still elusively smoky and enchanting. In general, he seemed to her quite comfortable, albeit in order to be neglected. An old sofa covered with a faded blanket, a bookcase to the ceiling, a table by a window on which some cards and a compass lay. On the wall, a yellowed photograph of the young Uncle Nikita in the marine uniform next to the anchor and a sailboat model. Uncle had two passions, the sea and the forest. It just so happened that Nikita Vasilievich both implemented. First he served an urgent in the navy, and then, to the surprise of the whole relatives, he went into this wilderness and became an anchor. His wife, Asiti Nyashenka, could not stand such a life and a year later ran back to civilization. Since then, Uncle Nikita lived with Bobil. One-on-one with his favorite forest, Katerina went into the kitchen, found an old but working electric stove and put a pot of water on it. Dinner was planned simple, pasta with stew, which she prudently captured from the city. Dima was already in full swing with Bim in the yard. The dog, as if realizing that he was dealing with his child, gently took a stick from his hands and brought it back, joyfully wagging his tail. The boy looked absolutely happy. But Katya's cats hung up in her soul. The silence and peace of this place did not reassure, on the contrary, as if they had opened old wounds. Memory, helpful and merciless, pulled her back. Here she is, still a very fragile and young girl, sat on a log by the fire, clasping her knees. At the youth party on the banks of the Katerina River, she hit the company with a friend almost accidentally. It was noisy, fun, someone frowned on the guitar. And then he picked up the guitar, Albert, tall, dark-haired, with a daring grin and incredibly beautiful hands. The guy did not just stumble, but played and sang, almost truly, hoarse, bewitching voice, imitating Vysotsky. Everyone calmed down, listening to him. Katya, of course, too. In his voice there was such an anguity, such a passion that goosebumps ran across her skin. When Albert finished, everyone was applauded. And then one of his company shouted, "And we also have a poet here. Katyuk, read something yours." Katya flashed. She wrote poetry from childhood, but without showing anyone to the table. Well, something I'm not. Come on, Katyush, do not break. And she, not knowing why, succumbed to a common mood. She got up and in a quiet voice, breaking away from excitement, read several of her poems about the wind, stars and unfulfilled children's dreams. When she finished, short silence came. And then the applause was heard. The most loud was him, Albert. That day, the guy looked at her as if he saw a miracle. And then, what no one expected happened. One of the guys decided to swim and, having sailed from the shore, began to sink. He floundered, going into the water and waved his hands in a panic. Without saying a word, young people rushed into the water at the same time, Katya and Albert, from childhood. She swam perfectly and, to the surprise of many, got to the drowning first. Graduate. Katerina shouted, trying to stay afloat next to him. But the guy, distraught with fear, clung to her with a dead grip. Leaning around with his whole body and carried away under the water, Katya drank cold river water. The lungs burned. And suddenly, with distinct clarity, she realized that she was drowning with him. At that moment, a strong hand grabbed her by the shoulder and jerked her to the surface. Albert, he picked up a panicking guy, somehow unfolded him and dragged him to the shore. Katya, jerking away, sailed nearby. On the shore they were wrapped in plaid, brought a mug with hot tea. Unlucky rescuers sat next to the fire, trembling from the cold and the shock experienced. "You are crazy," said Albert, looking at her with brilliant flames in the colors of his eyes. "You almost drowned because of this fool. And you rushed too?" answered Katya, knocking her teeth. "I'm okay. But you are so fragile and at the same time so bold. Listen to poems.in general. It seems to me that you are incredibly amazing." That night they talked until dawn. And a week later, Albert struck her at the bus stop. "Kat, wait." She turned around. The guy stood awkwardly shifting from foot to foot, with a bouquet of daisies in his hand. "This is for you." "Sorry, I did not know what exactly you love." "You guessed. I just love chamomiles." Katerina smiled, carefully taking the bouquet. "Listen. Maybe we are going to the cinema? Or just take a walk in the park? Something I can't stop thinking about you from that very night." Katya's cheeks flashed with shame, but it was not possible to refuse. She just agreed. So their novel began. It was a magical time. Endless walks around the night city, when Albert read her poems Yesenin, and she was his own. Kisses on the last row in the cinema under a stupid comedy. And also songs to the guitar dedicated only to her. In those days, Albert called her his muse and guardian angel in one person. "Do you understand, Kat?" he said, looking into her eyes. "I just lived before you. Saved as if with the flow. And with you, I realized that I could and want to turn the mountains. You definitely make me better." Soon Albert introduced her to her parents. Natalia Viktorovna accepted the bride of her son coolly, but politely. But Timur Sergeyevich, a large businessman with a heavy look, did not love the girl at first sight. "So this, then, you, Catherine, is our future daughter-in-law?" he asked at dinner, tenaciously looking at her simple dress. "Tell me, if not a secret. But what do your parents do?" "Mom is a teacher. Dad is a locksmith at the factory," Katya answered quietly. "I see," said Timur Sergeyevich. And in this understandable there was so much neglect that the cheeks dusted the guests. Later, she accidentally heard the conversation of her parents in the kitchen. "Timur, what are you doing with the girl? She is so sweet, educated. Darling, Natasha, don't mix me. Albert needs a profitable party, and not this cute blasphemy. Have you forgotten that I agreed with all of his daughter, Ella, is the bride for our son. Clever, beauty, with an excellent education and the state of her father behind her. And what? Carrying rod with stitches. But Alec loves her. Love comes and leaves, but the capital remains. I will talk to him, knock out this nonsense from his head. But Albert then showed unprecedented stubbornness. He quarreled with his father, but did not refuse Katya. I do not need no one except you, he said. No Ella. No paternal money. We can handle it ourselves." Despite all the obstacles, the wedding took place. Alina was a witness. From the side of Albert his best friend Dennis. It was the happiest day in Katya's life. The first years were like a fairy tale. They rented a cozy apartment, both worked. Katya got a job as a manager in a trading company. Albert worked in the company of his father. They spent evenings together, making plans for the future. Then Katya was gaining. And, unfortunately, the pregnancy was difficult. Constant toxicosis, several threats of miscarriage, hospitals. Albert was at first caring, but then his patience seemed to begin to run out. Are you bad again? Asked the husband with poorly hidden irritation. Maybe you can go to another doctor. Others are also pregnant and even go to dancing. And you are completely depressed. On the first ultrasound, the doctor uncertainly suggested that there would be a girl. Albert's face stretched out with displeasure. And I so wanted a son, the hair. Okay, what now? The main thing is to be healthy. But this phrase chopped Katya into her heart. And what was Albert's surprise when Dima was born? Contrary to all forecasts, a boy was born. Strong, vocal. Albert was in the seventh heaven with happiness. Son. I had a son. Bogachev Dmitry Albertovich. It sounds true. His joy was short-lived. Katya began problems. First, milk disappeared. Then, from the hormonal malfunction, they began to swell strongly and the legs hurt, beating so that it was impossible to walk. She cried with pain and powerlessness, but could not change anything. Well, are you roaring again? Said Albert wrinkled. All women happen. And nothing endure. Take yourself together. Now you are not only responsible for yourself, but also for our son. Soon little Dima had to be transferred to artificial feeding. Choosing the desired mixture was a real problem. Almost all types of the baby had an allergy. Sleepless nights, crying of a child, own pain. Katya was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And the husband seemed to be pulled away, lived in some kind of world. When she was finally discharged from the hospital, a new head of their family drama began. During pregnancy, Katya got a lot. In truth, she herself did not like herself in the mirror. But she really hoped that over time she would come into shape. And Albert did not wait. Kat, would you like the gym? Or what? The husband threw one evening, branded with her critical look. And then I blurted out somehow, well, a straight pouring Burenka from the village. His words were like a slap in the face. Albert began to avoid her. At night he turned off to the wall. Then he began to linger at work, referring to urgent meetings. And often he spoke on the phone, leaving for another room. Katya, embarrassing her teeth, took up herself, hard diet, exercises at home, while Dimka was asleep. And 6 months later, she did not just return her previous weight, but became even more slender. But this has not changed anything. The ice did not melt in their relationship. Albert is already used to another life in which there was no place for her. The denouement came on the day of their anniversary of the acquaintance. 10 years. Katya decided to arrange a surprise. I got out of work early, bought my husband's favorite wine, a cake, and put on the same dress in which she was on their first date. She entered the apartment, anticipating his surprise, and froze in the hallway. An unfamiliar female handbag hung on the hanger. On the floor stood elegant stilettos, and laughter came from the bedroom. Not him, female, and quiet music. The heart sank down somewhere, into the ice abyss. On cotton legs, she went to the bedroom door and pushed her with force. On their bed, in her silk robe, a young blonde sat. Albert is nearby, pouring champagne into glasses. He turned to the door creak, and his face seemed to be petrified. Katya, and you? Why are you so early? Christina, as it was later revealed, squeaked and tried to wrap herself tightly into a bathrobe. It is embarrassed, shame, humiliation. Everything mixed in the air, making it thick and impossible for breathing. Well, a surprise. Only Katya could exhale that evening. The husband did not even try to apologize. "What did you want?" he shouted when the lover, quickly dressed, slipped out of the apartment. "You turned into a boring clush. There is nothing to talk to you about except diapers and children's mixtures. You yourself are to blame for everything. On the day of our anniversary. In our bed. What difference? Just think. Just a minute weakness. Kat, do not make a tragedy out of this. Christina does not mean anything to me. But Katya saw how he looked at her, and realized, it's over. The next day I filed for divorce. Mom, Katya shuddered, emerging from painful memories. Dima stood on the threshold. Bim was sitting next to him, putting his head on his knees. "Mom, are you crying?" She quickly brushed a tear. "No, dear, that you just cut the bow, and the eyes are watery. We will have dinner soon. Go my hands." She laid her son to sleep in a small room, which once, apparently, was an uncle's office. The boy, exhausted by the road and new impressions, fell asleep instantly, hugging at the same time a plush bear. Bim got down on a rug by his bed, like a faithful guard. And Katya sat for a long time on the old couch in the living room and listened to the silence. There were no rides of cars, the screams of the neighbors, the howl of the sirens. Only the shooting from the crickets outside the window and the distant tagging cry of the owl. And this silence seemed deafening. She got up and went to the lower closet. On one of the shelves among reference books on ornithology and hunting, she found what she was looking for. A tattered book in solid binding, Huntsman, Obligations and Law. Katya took the book, lit a small bedside lamp with a fringe, which miraculously worked, and lay down in bed. Opening the first page, she began to read about forest arrangement, about biotechnical events and about the protection of the animal world. At first, the words seemed to be alien and incomprehensible, but a strange irrational confidence was growing with each inverted page in her soul. At least she should do this. Not for her sake, but for the sake of a sniffing lump in the next room, which was the only meaning of her broken life. The dream came to the woman exhausted for a day, far from right away. But when this still happened, the deep, velvet silence of the village night was torn by a strange plaintive sound. At first it was a thin, intermittent whine somewhere under the window, more like the crying of a lost child. Katerina, who failed in a heavy and worried drum, sat on the bed, trying to understand whether it was a dream or a reality. The whine was repeated, and then a grinding sound was added to it. Someone scratched the old boards at home with claws. Bim grumbled in the corner of the room. He spoke his head, listened, and then burst into a short but loud bark. "Hush, Bim." "Quieter," Katya whispered, groping a robe on a chair. From the next room came the frightened voice of Dima. "Mom, what is it? We were attacked." "It's okay, dear, rest. Probably, the hedgehog came to visit. I'll look now. You, most importantly, lie in the crib. Do not rise." Her heart pounded from inexplicable anxiety. She clicked the switch, but the light did not light up. Apparently, electricity turned off in the village at night. Finding the boxes of matches and agriculture candles on the windowsill, she lit a trembling light and, trying not to make noise, went out onto the porch. Bim slipped after her, but his barking immediately replaced his surprised whispering, and his tail earned like a propeller. In the weak light of the candle, Katya saw the cause of the commotion. In the corner of the porch, clinging to the wall, a small creature was sitting, a puppy, a very tiny, dark lump of wool, which, despite its size and a clear fright, growled desperately on a huge beamer, at the same time tiny milk teeth. Well, what are you? A warrior, Katya smiled. Pity for this lonely, frightened baby instantly replaced all fear. Bim, do not scare him, sit. The shepherd obediently sat down, not taking, however, the audience's curious eyes. Katya slowly squatted and extended her hand. Come here, do not be afraid. I will not offend you. Where did you come from? Lost, or what? The puppy froze. Stopped growling and looked at her with distrust. Katya spoke with him in a quiet, affectionate voice, as she spoke with her son when he was sick. Finally, the baby made an uncertain step forward, then one more and poked a cold wet nose in her palm. His pattern was surprisingly thick and tough, not at all puppy. Well, it's good. That's smart, Katya whispered, carefully picking him up in her arms. He was light like a feather, and all trembled. She brought him into the house, put him on the floor. Dima, who looked out of his room, thundered his eyes sleepily. Mom, who is this? It seems that we have a guest and seems to be very hungry. There, growls, as if the size of a member. And so tiny. Katya took out a bowl and laid out the remains of yesterday's dinner in it. Pasta with stew. The puppy, sensing the smell of food, forgot about everything in the world. He attacked the treats with such greed that his heart was contracting. How much he starved. Dima came closer and sat on the floor next to the puppy, which, already devastating the bowl, began to carefully lick it. Mom, can he stay with us? Please, please. The son's eyes looked with such a prayer that it was impossible to refuse. Dim, but we have Bim. And Bim will not mind. Really, Bim? The boy looked at the shepherd, and Bim, in response, was friendly, wagged his tail. They will look. And let's call him the Black. No, the corner. The name of Uncle Nikita is called Cole. Katya correctly corrected him. Let's think about the name tomorrow, okay? At heart, she hesitated. Another dog is additional responsibility and expenses. But looking at the happy face of his son and at this defenseless lump, which, having hung up, already rejoined her nose at her feet, Katya realized it was impossible to put him out the door. Okay, she sighed, let it stay. I hope everything that is not done is all for the better. The next morning she woke up before everyone else. The sun's rays made their way through the cracks in the old shutters, drawing gold stripes on the floor. Katya quickly prepared breakfast, oatmeal on the water and tea. Her whole little family was already waiting in the kitchen. Dima, Bim, and the new tenant, who got used to it during the night and now cheerfully tried to steal her toy ball from the shepherd. So, Robber, you need a name, Katya said, putting a saucer in front of a puppy with porridge soaked in water. Your wool is not black, rather dark gray. Like a thunderstorm. You will be gray. Agree. The puppy in response loudly chained, as if approving his new status. A quickery of breakfast and feeding the household, Katya hurried to the chairman. She only had half an hour left before the appointed meeting. At the gate of the house of Yaroslav Petrovich, there was already an old one who saw the Vasek khaki color. Katya timidly tapped the gate. The chairman himself opened her. Next to him was a young man, about 30 years old, in camouflage uniform, tall, torn, with short-cut brown hair and serious blue eyes. He looked at her with polite curiosity. In the depths of the courtyard, Katerina noticed a raven horse, powerful and beautiful. He stood at Kanavashi, from time to time impatiently stepping from foot to foot. Surely it was a corner. Ah, Ekaterina Danilovna, go through. We are already waiting for you, said Yaroslav Petrovich cordially. Meet, this is Evgeny Pavlovich Sokolov, the huntsman of a neighboring bypass, came to instruct you. Zhen, this is Ekaterina Danilovna Bogacheva, niece of Nikita Vasilievich. Very nice. Eugene smiled slightly, holding out his hand. The handshake was strong, confident. Yaroslav Petrovich yesterday outlined the situation on my phone. The solution, of course, is extraordinary. Yes. I understand that this is somewhat unusual and you may have doubts. Katya began, feeling that she was blushing under his gaze, but I was ready to study and work. Doubts are part of my work, he answered calmly. Come on to business right away. Have you ever kept in the saddle? In childhood. Dad drove me to the hippodrome several times, but, however, it was a very long time and not for long. Clear. Would you have to handle weapons at least in a dash? No, never. Eugene looked at Evgeny with Yaroslav Petrovich. And in the gaze of the huntsman it was red. Well, I said. Don't worry so, Zhen, the chairman intervened. Maybe he will really learn. Huh. And as for the horse, Nikita's Cole was the smartest beast. He knows all the paths in the forest, like his 5 fingers, well, or what he has. In general. You will not get lost with him. The main thing is to serve the team correctly and not interfere. He himself will lead where to. Eugene skeptically grunted, but did not argue. Okay, then let's go on the main points. The first next task is to go around the territory. Here is a map. He launched a large sheet on the hood of UAZ. Here are the main routes of your site. And the task is to follow the order. What does it mean? Search, neutralize poaching traps, loops, traps. Check the salients. Well, such feeders with salt for moose and roe deer. If you see that someone ruined them or, God forbid, arranged an ambush nearby, immediately inform me. How to report? Katya specified, trying to remember all the details. About this a little later. Next. Any traces of outsiders, fresh bonfires, traces of cars, where they should not be, garbage. You photograph everything, fix the place on the map and again inform. In no case do not come into direct contact with suspicious personalities. Your task is observation and informing. You are the eyes and ears of forestry, okay? Yes, quite. Confidently, Katerina nodded. Excellent. Now in communication. Eugene opened the door of the UAZ and took out a massive walkie-talkie and several small black boxes. This is for you. He extended the radio to Katya. A powerful thing, hits a few kilometers. Cello is not caught in the forest, so this is the only way to contact the outside world. Here is my frequency. Here is the frequency of Yaroslav Petrovich. Turn on, press the button, say, everything is simple, and what? Katya picked up one of the boxes. This is GPS pieces. Attach one to the saddle, and always keep one in your pocket. They transmit your signal to my navigator. If you, say, get lost or do not get in touch at the appointed time, we will always know where to look for you. Safety precautions is first of all. Thank you. Sincerely thanked Katya. This prudence reassured her. Well, for starters everything seems to be, Yevgeny summed up, looking at his watch. I still have business in the area, and you get around. There will be questions. Cause a walkie-talkie. Kat, come. Meet the Cole, suggested Yaroslav Petrovich, taking a red apple from his pocket. He is a boy with character, but recognizes his own. Katerina went to the horse with some trepidation. The Cole was even more beautiful near. Smooth, glossy black wool and smart wet eyes in the sun. He snorted when she approached, but did not shy away. Katya held out an apple in his open hand, as her father once taught. The horse carefully, with soft lips, took a treat and won. Then the face poked in her shoulder. As if thanks to the affection? You seem to make friends, Eugene smiled. Well, good luck to you, Ekaterina Danilovna. He sat in his UAZ. The car roared by the engine and, raising a cloud of dust, disappeared around the bend. Well, lead your new partner home, said Yaroslav Petrovich, unraveling the reason. I spend you. Anyway, along the way, taking the coal under the users, Katya went along the street. The horse walked side by side, like a well-trained dog. Imagine, Yaroslav Petrovich, Katya shared, we had another glance at night. The puppy was nailed. Such a little, frozen puppy. That's good. In the farm. Any living creature will come in handy. The chairman answered good-naturedly. But when they entered the courtyard, and Yaroslav Petrovich saw a grey, who fought cheerfully with Bim, he, in amazement, stopped, as if dug. Mother honest, what a puppy is it? And who? Katya did not understand. After all, it is small at all. You look at him carefully. The chairman came closer. On the paw, on the ears, on the wool. Yes, this is a wolf cub. The half-breed is similar. It happens when the dog carries from the wolf. A flock does not accept such a litter. So they drive them out, or mother hides, and then someone finds. Katya looked at Gray with completely different eyes. But the truth is, in his appearance there was something wild, not dog. Oh, is it not dangerous? At such an age? No, of course. But what came to you is incredibly lucky for you. Yes. Do you even know which of the half-bloods of the ranger are obtained? They have no prices in the forest. They have a flair of wolf and the devotion of the dog. If you grow up correctly, you will not find a better assistant. Consider the happy ticket stretched out. The news was stunning. Katya crouched and stroked Gray, who immediately began to lick her hands. Wolf, a real wolf cub lives in her house. Listen, Katya. Yaroslav Petrovich slapped himself on his forehead. Well, we have forgotten the main thing. The son must be arranged in school. The 1st of September on the nose. Let's go while there is time. The director, however, is away, but the deputy should be in his place. They left a coal in the yard. The horse immediately began to pinch the grass at the fence and headed for the large wooden building in the very center of the village. The school caused Katya an attack of acute nostalgia. The same flora painted with green paint as in her childhood, and the same posters on the walls, only everything was old, dilapidated and clearly required repair. In the teacher's head, they were met by a young man, the same deputy director. Andrei Valentinovich turned out to be a pleasant, intelligent man, a little older than Katya, with good eyes behind glasses of glasses and a shy smile. He taught history. Andrei, this is the matter. Without a precondition, Yaroslav Petrovich began, explaining the situation. The little boy needs to be determined in the 3rd grade. Okay, no problem, he nodded. Bring the documents and are waiting for September 1st in our friendly team. We will definitely highlight the place. Thank you very much, Katya breathed in relief. Moreover, the teacher added, so that your son does not get bored before starting studies, I can offer him to go to the preparatory lesson. Now it's just leading a circle. We are engaged in the history of our region. Well, a little botanist also go to small hiking in the vicinity so that the children do not sit at home idle. Develop, learn something new. Wow, that would be wonderful. Katya was delighted. I will have to go to the forest for several hours, and I was thinking with whom to leave him. Well, that's great. Andrei Valentinovich smiled. Today is an hour in an hour, so if Dima wants, let him come. Our room is number 3, over there. Katya, thanking the teacher, hurried home. And Dima, having learned that he will go to school, and even can make friends with the guys today, came into indescribable delight. Having sent him to the lesson, Katerina began to prepare for her first exit. She put a bottle of water, binoculars, a walkie-talkie and beacons in an old uncle's backpack. Bim, she said sternly, you stay behind the main thing, to guard the grey, understand? He faded in the affirmative and lay down at the porch, putting his head on his paws and not taking his eyes off the wolf. Katya brought the coal from the yard. Now the most difficult thing was to climb into the saddle. Somehow, on the third attempt, standing on the stump, it was located in the saddle. The sensations were strange, high, unstable. Well, let's go. Go ahead, she said hesitantly, gently touched her sides with his heels. The horse obediently started off, heading right into the forest. But soon Katya realized that riding is not as romantic as in the cinema. The back, not accustomed to such loads, immediately ached. She tried to recall the teams that Yaroslav Petrovich spoke of. To the right, she ordered, seeing a fork. Ern, instead of turning, stopped and began to live a willow branch with appetite. Cooked, well, what are you? We are in the other direction. But the horse ignored her and went straight, along the widest road. Attempts to make him go faster led to the fact that he slowed down almost before the step. And on a narrow path, where the branches flipped through the face, Katya could not resist and, hinging, almost fell out of the saddle, miraculously clinging to the mane. That's enough, she said in her heart, sliding to the ground. I'll go on foot, and you go nearby. She took him under the mustache and went along the path, feeling like a complete loser. But I did not have time to take 10 steps. The coal stopped. He turned his big head to the new mistress and gently, but persistently poked his nose in her shoulder. Then again, he looked at her with his smart eyes as if he was talking. Well, what are you? Don't give up. Let's try again. Sit down. I will lead you carefully. And at that moment, Katya felt incredible unity with this strong, noble animal. She believed him and, stroking his neck again, this time she climbed into the saddle much more confidently. Okay, coal, lead. Let's try. And at that moment a miracle happened. The horse went into an even, smooth step, gently around the pits and low-hanging branches. He seemed to feel every uncertainty of the hostess and tried to go so that she was as comfortable as possible. Katya relaxed and was able to look around for the first time. The forest lived his life. They sang birds, somewhere in the embroidery pounded a woodpecker, smelled of mushrooms and charm foliage. Soon she saw what Eugene warned about. At the very edge of the path covered with branches, there was a trap, cold, metal, alien in this living forest. The heart was alarming. The trap was empty. She dismounted and went on, leaving a coal. And after a few tens of meters I saw, and it was not empty. A small hair fought in his steel teeth. He fell silent when Katya came up and only looked at her with huge black, spent eyes in which tears froze. The rear paw of the eared vagabond was unnaturally twisted. Katya remembered what she had read in the reference book. A wild animal in a panic can bite or scratch. You need to act carefully. First of all, she did not easily find a strong long stick. Hush, small, quieter, whispered Katerina, slowly approaching. I will help you. I won't hurt you. She knelt down, trying not to make sudden movements. Putting a stick between the teeth of the trap, she pressed it with all her strength, using it as a lever. The mechanism with a rattle succumbed. The hare, feeling freedom, frantically rushed and, lame, disappeared into the bushes in several jumps. Katya, breathing heavily, remained sitting on the ground. Her hands trembled. She neutralized the trap, breaking the spring with a stone, as was written in the book. Having freed the unfortunate animal, she felt a surge of confidence and again climbed into the saddle. This time, the coal also went smoothly and calmly. As if they had become a single whole. The horse led her along a barely noticeable path. Katya trusted him completely. And soon the air became moist and heavy. The smell of Tina turned damp. The forest is stripped, giving way to bumps, overgrown with moss and stunted crooked birches. Swamp. The Cole, without reducing the step, confidently took to the left, bypassing the very swamp along the edge. And at that moment, Katya heard what made her freeze. The muffled cry, as if someone shouted and clamped his mouth with his hand. The sound was desperate, complete pain, he repeated. This time quieter, more like groans. Cooked, Katya whispered, pulling the reins. She dismounted, tying the cognac of a thin birch. The Cole restlessly crossed from his foot to his foot and snorted loudly, making it clear that he would not go further on this unsteady soil. Quiet, boy. I'm fast. Katya patted his neck and, trying to step on the denser bumps, gently moved forward, to the side, from where the sound came. She passed 20 meters when she saw him. In the window, standing brown water, among the duckweed and swamp grasses, a man was bogged down on the very chest. His face, covered with mud and vapor, was distorted by suffering. Seeing Katerina, he extended his hand to her with a prayer. Girl, help. For the sake of the saint. The first thought was, a poacher, fared into his own trap. She instructively stepped back and her gaze became tough. Who are you, and what are you doing here? I am not a poacher. Swearing. His head was weak, hoarse. My name is Alexei Klimov. Son Konstantin Klimova, they whined. The surname was heard. A large businessman, owner of a construction corporation. What happened to you? How did you end up here? I am the abductors. Alexei exhaled. They kept a Nadel in a hut in the forest. They demanded a ransom. Nekoy managed to somehow untie his hands and crawl out the window. He ran where his eyes looked in the dark and fell out in the end. I'm afraid to move, sucks me and scream. After all, they can be somewhere nearby. The story sounded wildly, but despair in his eyes was genuine. Katya looked around. We need to call help. She patted herself in the pockets of her jacket, then on the belt. Empty. Radio? Where is the radio? It must have fallen when Katya almost fell off the horse. Suddenly, voices were heard somewhere nearby. Male, rude. It's exactly somewhere here. The jerk could not go far. Where will he go in these swamps? Let's find it soon. Katya, Holodev, collapsed at the moss for the nearest bump. The kidnappers are looking for a fugitive. She lurked, afraid to even breathe. Alexei also froze. His face became white, like a canvas. It was necessary to do something, and do it quickly. Katya looked around and noticed a long dry victim lying nearby. It looks like it was a chance. Relieves. Bending to the ground, she reached her. Catch, she whispered as loudly as she dared. I'll throw a stick. She raised a heavy sacrifice. Trying to throw her Alexei. The moss under her foot treacherously haggard. Katya lost her balance and with a quiet cry flew into the same viscous cold quagmire as he. Water burned with ice cold. The viscous slurry immediately stuck on her legs, constraining her movement. The Cole, seeing that the mistress in trouble, neighed and stepped forward, almost rushing after her. No, Cole, back. Do not dare, cried Katya, choking with marsh water. Wait where you are standing. The horse froze on the edge. Frightenedly leading the ears, Katya tried to reach the hanging prison, but the distance was too large. Each flounder only plunged her into a quagmire deeper. Despair covered her with her head. Coolanut, she whispered, looking longing at the faithful horse. And tears mixed with dirty water on her cheeks. Nice, bring help. Run, look for people. Help. The horse looked at her with his smart eyes, as if he understood everything. Once again, He neighed plaintively, stomped with a hoof, and, turning around, reluctantly wandered away, hiding behind the trees. The first day in the position of the Argyria turned into a complete failure and, possibly, the last day in her life. It is unlikely that he will return, Alexei said quietly. His voice was devoid of all hope. It's just a horse. Katya looked at her comrade in misfortune. He was pale, his lips turned blue and exhaustion. She smiled packedly. No, this is not a simple animal. The coal is very smart. The silence crushed, violated only by the champion of the quagmire, which slowly but inexorably pulled them down. The hopelessness of the situation seemed absolute. They were together in the middle of the endless swamp, without the connection pursued by the bandits. Death was not just probable, it was inevitable. Cold, slow, painful. And the man broke in silence, trying to support her. The funny thing is that I hate my father's business. I never dealt with it. I am a doctor. An intensive care unit. I save people after accidents, heart attacks. But I can't save myself. The irony of fate. Katya looked at him in amazement. And in his exhausted face she suddenly saw something else. Not from a gentle, rich son, but mind and inner strength. Is it true? Truth, Alexei nodded. I always wanted to help people. But it seems that today is my last day, and it will end unsuccessfully. They fell silent again. The quagmire had already reached them to the upper half of the chest. The cold made his way to the bones. The body began to go numb. And Katya thought about her son. Who will take care of him? What will happen to him? This thought was worse than his own death. It looks like that, Alexei whispered. There was no fear in his voice. Only endless fatigue. There will be nothing more in my life, neither saved patients, nor morning coffee. In mine too, Katya answered with pain. They looked at each other. Two completely strangers, by the will of fate, who were on the verge of death, side by side. I want to say goodbye, Alexei said, looking straight into her eyes. But I don't even know what your name is. Katya, she breathed. Very nice, Katerina, the doctor smiled weakly. Despite this whole situation, I am glad that before my death I see such a beautiful face. At that moment, when, it seemed, the last hope was faded, a loud crack was heard very close. They both built up, expecting to see the bandits. But because of the trees, Yaroslav Petrovich flew out on a sword horse. Hold on! The chairman shouted, on the move, making a thick rope from the saddle. The coal led, well done. A stomach. He deftly threw the end of Katya's rope. I will get strangled with armpits. Her stiff fingers barely obeyed, but she coped. Yaroslav Petrovich wound the rope on the bow of the saddle and a powerful horse, resting, slowly pulled it out of the cod. Then the same operation repeated with Alexei. Young people lay on moss, dirty, frozen, but alive, unable to believe in their salvation. But they were not allowed to enjoy this moment. Due to the trees, cursing, two men with weapons came out. And here is our bird. One of them grinned, directing the gun to Alexei. Oh, and the assistants were found. Well, grandfather, now you will dance with us. The situation again became critical. At that moment, in the pocket of Yaroslav Petrovich, something cracked loudly, and then a voice rang out. Petrovich, Petrovich, this is Sokolov. In touch? Yes, the signal from the beacon of Bogachev and the Black Spear was cut. What happened there? Reception. It was Katya's walkie-talkie. Yaroslav Petrovich, apparently, found her on the path. The faces of the bandits were distorted. Having exchanged anxious glances, they thought that they were spotted. And help on the way. Well, get out of here, shouted one to the other. In the powerless malice, the one that aimed at Alexei, offhand pressed on the trigger. There was a deafening shot. The doctor instinctively jerked aside. The bullet passed by him, but Katya, standing a little behind, cried out and crashed to the ground as a knit dot. The dark spot was rapidly blurred on her jacket in the shoulder area. The bandits rushed to run into the thicket. "Sokolov, do you hear me?" Yaroslav Petrovich shouted into the radio. Rushing to Katerina. "Attack, poachers or God knows who. The woman is wounded. Urgently call an ambulance on a row. The coordinates of the beacon." Katya still tried to say something, and her lips moved, but her eyes rolled up, and she lost consciousness. She came to her senses from an even monotonous squeak. Around it was dazzling white, ceiling, walls, sheets and the smell of the hospital. Alexei was sitting next to the bed in a white coat. There was no more dirt on his face, only a fresh bruise was visible under his eye. "Thank God you woke up. Where am I?" "In intensive care. I was in a coma. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. A month of Sundays. Dima, my son. What's wrong with him?" Anxiety pierced consciousness with a sharp injection. "Everything is in order with her. Don't worry," Alexei reassured her. "My father took care of everything. The guard is located with Dima around the clock. The best nanny and maid. Yaroslav Petrovich, by the way, visits him every day. So the guy is good." Soon the chairman looked into the ward. In his hands he held a small box. "Well, hello, our heroine." He smiled warmly. "You scared us all. Now, they gave you out of forestry. Medal for the manifested courage. You not only saved the hostage, you helped to go out to the whole gang. By the way, everyone was caught. Well, and the poachers at the same time. They just fell from Tivitsa under a hot hand." Katya brushed a tear. "Yaroslav Petrovich, who are these people? Bandits, Katyush, ordinary bandits. But there is one nuance. Their leader, as it turned out, is Kristina Parshina's brother." Katya died out. "Kristina Parshina, her husband's mistress?" Yes. It seems that your ex-spouse is also involved in this. Indirectly, as an accomplice, he knew, but did not report. In general, now he is under arrest, gives evidence." Katya closed her eyes. Even here, on the edge, death. The past reached her with its dirty tentacles. When Yaroslav Petrovich left, Alex sat on the edge of her bed. He was silent for a long time, not daring to raise his eyes. "Kat, I need to tell you something. This is very important. Speak. After what was, it seems that you can't get anything." He lowered his eyes, embarrassed. "The bullet went to the flight, but touched the spine. Doctors did everything they could. But there is a chance that you can never walk." The world collapsed. The white ceiling, a squeak of instruments, the face of Alexei, everything swam, dissolving at the same time in a deafening roar bursting out of her chest. It was a tantrum, wild, unbridled, complete despair and pain. Katya cried, not hearing anyone's words. A nurse ran into the ward and made an injection of the sedative. From this day, Katerina began to fade away. She refused to eat and looked silently at the wall for hours. Her only joy was her son's visits. But even Dima's laughter and hug only for a while brought her out of apathy. Alexei did not move away from her a single step, feeling guilty and obliged. As a doctor, he understood her torment, and his heart was torn. He saw Katya, biting his lip to blood, tried to transfer to a wheelchair, and how the tears of powerlessness rolled along her cheeks. "Leave me alone," she shouted to him, "go away. I don't want to see you, I hate it, all because of you." Alexei silently demolished her anger, realizing that he was aimed not at him, but at cruel injustice with fate. While Katya was asleep, he was sitting over books at night, consulted with the best neurosurgeons in the world, developing his own, unique set of exercises. "Katya, we will do it," he said once in a firm voice. "I will not. I am a disabled person. Do you not understand? No, you are not a disabled person. You just temporarily cannot walk. But I will put you on your feet. I swear." His colleagues' doctors chuckled behind him. Ha, Klimov Jr. played in The Savior. It seems that he decided that for their father's money you can create miracles. But Alexei did not pay attention to it. And day after day he forced Katya to engage. Through pain, sweat, tears and hate her. She, reluctantly, angrily performed the exercise, without believing in success. So far, one day, after 3 months of torment. During one of the exercises she suddenly froze. "I seem to feel a finger on my left leg." Lesha rushed to her. This was the first victory, tiny, but giving hope. The process went slowly, gradually, with kickbacks and new successes. 6 months later, she was discharged. Alexei drove Katya back to the village, to the house of Uncle Nikita. Everyone was met at home. Dima, who rushed to her neck, and Bim, joyfully whining and licking her hands, and also grown up, but still the same devoted Grey.as it turned out. The wolf chopper and did not think to go into the forest. And her rehabilitation continued. Alexei came from the city every day, until, finally, he did not wait for what he had been waiting for these many months. Katya stood holding on his hand in the courtyard of her house. "I'll try myself," she whispered. The doctor let her go. Katerina staggered, but resisted. Then she took a step. One independent, uncertain, then the second. Katya walked, slowly, but at the same time herself. Tears of happiness flowed down her cheeks. She returned to Lesha and hugged him as tightly as she could. He looked at her, and love splashed in his eyes. "Well, now you, when you can leave me, but do not leave, go out for me." "Good," Katya breathed, not hesitation for a second. "I agree." 6 months after the wedding, Alexei published a scientific work based on his own rehabilitation methodology, which put not only Katya on his feet, but also brought him worldwide recognition in medical circles. But the main reward was the smile of a woman with whom he first visited the swamp, and then overcame the abyss of despair.